Good evening. Welcome to First Church and to our 44th season of the Music at the Meeting House series. My name is Dr. Angela Salcedo, and I am the Director of Music Ministries here at First Church. We have a very unique program for us this evening, a premiere work by composer, singer, and conductor, Dr. Leonard Raybon. It is a work inspired by the writings of the 19th century Smith family women, the mother, Hannah Hadessa Hickok, and her daughters. Hannah was a trailblazer for human rights back then, a strong advocate for women's suffrage movement, as well as an abolitionist. The Smith family lived on Main Street here in Glastonbury and attended worship on these very grounds where this church stands today. Of course, 2 buildings ago that were on this exact property. Thank you to the Glastonbury Historical Society, the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History, and the Social Justice team here at First Church for sponsoring this wonderful program. This concert will consist of a set of 20 pieces interspersed with narration, all describing the various periods of the Smith women's lives. You all saw a QR code on the flyer about the Sacred 9 Project, which was formed by Leonard, and it features a lot of his works. The mission statement of this project, it says, "We have scores to settle by engaging with music, texts, theater, or even events from an earlier America. We may shape a future one." Fascinating, huh? That music can do that, can create the history and bring it alive for what's happening in our world today, and maybe even make changes and maybe influence our lives today. Our musicians this evening are soloists from the Hart School of Music, the Chancel Choir here at First Church, Stephen Scarlato, organist and pianist, and of course Dr. Raybon, who will be our narrator. He also sings bass and will also conduct. I will be helping him assist with 2 pieces because he'll be singing, so I'm going to help and assist. So just a few reminders. Please silence your phones. During the performance, restrooms are located through the front 2 side doors. Again, each piece, some pieces are short. If you need to get up between the pieces, feel free if you need to use the restrooms. Be a friend of the Music at the Meeting House series at each of the tables as you entered. Please leave your name, and we'll be happy to send you more information. Thank you to our friends for supporting this series. We could not offer this series without your support. And to Alex Richter tonight, who will be recording this for us this evening. You all received a raffle ticket as you entered the sanctuary. We will raffle 2 free tickets to our next Music in the Meeting House concert, a holiday concert by the KC Sisters. The KC Sisters were featured on Nickelodeon's show, America's Most Musical Family, and they will bring us in with the Christmas cheer here at First Church on December 20th. So as not to disrupt the program, I'm going to announce the winner of the raffle right now. Normally I do it right before the end of the concert, so I'm going to do it now. So get your tickets out. And while you're finding your tickets, just remember, after this concert, there will be a time for questions. So stick around. So when the concert ends, there'll be questions. We're going to ask you to ask some, stick around, and then there's a reception. So make sure you stay for both. Okay, the winner is, all right, ticket number 915610. And if you are already a friend, you could just give your tickets to someone else to come. Oh, I saw the hand up. Hold on a moment. Now, without much delay, we'll bring the choir on and we'll get started.
Good evening and welcome to Sacred Nine Project, Hannah and Her Daughters, or the Smiths of Glastonbury. I'm Leonard Raybon, founder of Sacred Nine Project. In 2023, while researching a project for UNC Chapel Hill, I stumbled on the journals and sundry writings of one Hannah Hadassah Hickok, held at the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History. I transcribed both journals and some of the other writings, and that is much harder than it sounds. I became obsessed with the active transcription and about this fascinating woman, Hannah Hadassah Hickok. To celebrate Hannah Hadassah Hickok Smith, I use her own words and my reimagining of her words, her deeds and her interests, as well as excerpts of what she read and interacted with. Every word we sing appears in your program. Because we are throwing a lot of words at you, I encourage you to follow along closely, because I don't want you to miss anything. You will also have a few opportunities to participate later. Our concert opened with my arrangement of How Firm a Foundation. In one of her writings labeled Unbound, Hannah transcribed dozens of hymns, including that one. The next piece perhaps underscores Hannah's favorite word, at least a young Hannah. In her earlier journal, in which Hannah in her 60s was transcribing the journals of Hannah from her late teens, she uses some form of this word 35 times. Finishing out this set is a cycle of 3 prose passages from Hannah's late teens journal. Let's just say this was her judgmental period. of fun. Hannah was quite the poet. She would pen poems and leave them all over the house for her daughters to collect. Next is a series of acrostics that she was so fond of. However, in the first of the set, Mrs. Pamela Hale, the L is missing from the acrostic. I just found a word that started with L and put it there, with my apologies to Hannah. After that, we learned that Hannah was a voracious reader. She tells us what she read, which includes Bunyan's Conversion, Nathan's Magazine, The Fortunate Country Maid, Robertson's History of Scotland, Cook's Last Voyage, Paradise Lost, and the epistolary novels of Samuel Richardson. We will hear When Sad I Sat from Richardson's Pamela. These were moral novels about feminine virtue. Our heroine, Pamela, the long-suffering servant who continues to rebuff the advances of her employer, writes a parody of Sternhold and Hopkins' When We Did Sit in Babylon. As you can see from the title, Pamela places dashes in words she wants to conceal. This poem is not only evidence for Hannah's reading, but also reveals a common practice in Hannah's journals, putting dashes when she doesn't want prying eyes to know whom she's talking about. Finally, Hannah talked about building castles in the air, which basically meant entertaining pipe dreams. I have taken that one phrase and written an original poem from Hannah's point of view.
And
Now we have the first appearance of the daughters. Next is the Magnificat from Julia Evelina Smith's own translation of the Bible. Why did she translate the Bible? I'll tell you a little later, but it has something to do with the rapture. Have I sufficiently piqued your interest? Now we have two more settings of Julia's translations of the Bible, the first of which is Song of Solomon 5:1, which Hannah references as the biblical reading on the day she was received into the church, on June 3rd, 1786. Was it this church? I know not this building, but it could have been this church. Finishing the set is Farewell My Pen. Apparently the first journal I transcribed, which was of her teenage self, ended with a poem about, her own poem about, writing a journal. Then she added a poem from her 66-year-old self about what? You guessed it, writing a journal. Here we have the singers playing the older and younger Hannahs.
I Mr. Smith breakfasted here on his way home. We are not seeking for the our hopes aspire to future bliss. May they be realized at last, and in a better world than this.
Another of Hannah's readings was Sermon Preached at the Execution of Moses Paul, an Indian. This execution happened in New Haven in 1772. Moses Paul was of the Wampanoag tribe and was found guilty of murdering Moses Cook, a white man. Samson Occam, a noteworthy Native American Christian pastor, delivered a sermon at this execution. In one of my podcast episodes, Listen to the Sacred Nine Project podcast, I was talking with scholar Drew Lopenzina about Samson Occam, even though it is widely known that this sermon was published at the time. There is spotty evidence of people actually reading it, but we know at least one person who did, Hannah Hadassah Hickok. Drew was interested to learn of this concrete evidence of readership. In the sermon, Occam quotes a hymn by Isaac Watts, which we will sing for you a little bit later. After that comes the chief reason for Julia Smith translating the Bible. There is nothing new under the sun. You might have heard recently that the rapture was supposed to have happened on September 22nd and 23rd of 2025. I don't know if you've heard that, but it was a big sensation. And when that didn't happen, people moved the date to October 6th and 7th, well, because of the Julian calendar or something like that. The Smiths, at least Julia and Abby, were Millerites. William Miller predicted that Christ would return in 1843. When that didn't happen, he moved the date. When that didn't happen, it was called the Great Disappointment. Look it up. It's in all caps, the Great Disappointment. Julia was convinced that Miller was on to something. She had even stopped keeping her diary, which she kept in French, because of Christ's imminent return. When Christ didn't show, she translated the Bible to see where Miller had gone wrong in his calculations. In Expectation Suite, which you'll hear in a moment, is a poem found in The Midnight Cry, which was a Millerite publication from 1842.
Teach me the measure of my taste, the maker of
Last in this set is a hymn that I found in another of Hannah's writings. As I told you before, she transcribed many, many hymns. By the tune title, she lists a number. So I assumed she was transcribing from a published hymnal. After some really nifty detective work, I figured out exactly which hymn she owned. And because what's worth doing is worth overdoing, I found an antique copy of said hymnal, published in 1840. All these writings are from 1844. The hymnal that I found was from 1843, which is on that stand right there. So after the concert, if you want to go, it's open to the very hymn we're about to sing, the first section of which are the soloists singing the exact voicing that is in that hymnal. Now it's your turn. On the last verse of this, I will stand you, and you will sing as indicated in your program. It's the last verse of the hymn that's in bigger letters. I think you probably know the tune Duke Street, even if you don't know you know the tune Duke Street. Let's just see. Anyway, give it a shot.
Lord, when thou didst ascend on high, 10,000 angels filled the sky. Those heavenly guards are on thee wait, like chariots that attend thy state. Dost thine eyes often follow me? Glorious when the Lord was there, while he pronounced his dreadful law, and struck tribes with How bright the triumph dark and dim, when the rebellious powers of hell, 1,000 souls have captive made, were all in chains like captives led. Praised by his wondrous crown, he sent the promised Spirit down, with gifts and grace forevermore, that God might dwell
I think you all did very good. Our last set begins with a poem included in a publication called, of all things, Abby Smith and Her Cows. You've probably heard of this at some point, living where you live. In the early 1870s, the remaining sisters, Julia and Abby, refused to pay an extra tax that was unfairly assessed on their property. I mean, no taxation without representation, right? As a result, 8 of their cows were seized to be auctioned. According to AmericanHeritage.com, in the early morning of January 8, 1874, a momentous procession moved along quiet Main Street of the small New England town of Glastonbury, Connecticut, right out there, led by an implacable town official who doubled as a constable and tax collector. 7 Alderney cows plodded toward the auction block, their reluctant progress urged by 4 men, a dog, and a drum. Behind followed some 40-odd local citizens with teams of horses, and in the rear, black-bonneted heads held high, their resolute spines never touching the backs of the wagon seats, rode 2 frail little elderly ladies. The scene was, in the words of a Hartford correspondent, a fit centennial celebration of the Boston Tea Party. Justice was at stake, and the 7 cows, like the chests of tea, were destined to become a national symbol. This story got a lot of press. The newspaper stories and related poetry were collected in a book entitled what I said before, Abby Smith and Her Cows. The next piece, The Drum of Glastonbury, is one such poem. The soloists and you will do a call and response clap. Let's practice. You're naturals. That's great. Following that, I was inspired by a timekeeping phrase that Hannah used. She would often say, the sun is an hour high. The sun is 2 hours high. The sun is 3 hours high. But I took it in a different direction. You'll hear in the piano a tick-tock, tick-tock. And that's giving a nod to the fact that Hannah was a repairer of clocks. I mean, the talent that these women had is just astounding. Anyway, an hour high was just a simple way of her expressing the time of day in her journals. But what I took it to mean is something else. I muse about what is the best use of our very precious and limited time here on earth. Again, keep an eye out on your program for the text.
Connecticut went marching to the fight, beating their arms, they onward strode to battle day and night. They fought to keep the nation free, the Union was their cry. Our fathers won us liberty, and shall our country die? What proud procession passes on? Why sound the drum today?
Why to the signpost through the town do people take their way?
Who answers to the roll call now? The 7 cows you see, and 40 men who rush to buy these cows for liberty. The drum that beat 10 years ago, right is right. Now Watkins echoes round our voice, that's right. We choose to tax Miss Abby Smith to say she shall not vote. The cows we now put up for sale our liberties denote. Oh, brave boys of Connecticut, beat loud your battle drums. To auction block of liberty, bid all your men now come.
When I began transcribing Hannah's writings, I had a preconceived notion of what her life would have been like. I imagined a hyper-puritanical existence, obsessed with purity, modesty, church-going, and extremely tough living. I could not have been more wrong. Hannah was a free spirit. She was a person of privilege, but did not flaunt it. She would go off on her own. She would stay up as late as she wanted. How do we know? Because she literally tells us every day when she rises in the morning and when she goes to bed at night. About church, she arguably went not to meeting more than she went. She did adopt a shame-based Christianity when she went for a while to Vermont to tend a school where her uncle lived. But other than that, I would say she was moderate when it came to religious matters. Hannah Hadassah Hickok was a fascinating woman, and she has inspired me. She and her daughters were suffragists. They were abolitionists. Not only has she inspired my soul, but in other ways too. I keep a journal also. Now I only write with a fountain pen because it gives that sort of aged look that I like. I also turn my D's like she did, just that. I never did that before, but I do it absolutely all the time now. Instead of the word and, I always use the ampersand, just like I don't think she ever wrote the word A-N-D, ever in her life. I always use, and a random fun fact, for a time she had a young blind boy who tuned her piano. She would talk about him in her journals. Thank you for being here. I have several people I'd like to thank. The first contact was Tasha Caswell at the Connecticut Museum, who first referred me to Natalie Bellinger, who's here, who in turn listened to my wacky proposal with an open mind. My deepest gratitude to the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History for securing a significant grant, and to the Glastonbury Historical Society for co-sponsoring, and to my new bestie, Diane Hoover. I'm so grateful to First Church Glastonbury and their social justice team for hosting us, and to Angela Salcedo, who has been such a gracious point of contact here at First Church. Deserved. I'm so honored to have secured these magnificent artists, Lisabeth Miller, Michelle Fiertek, Meghan Ryan, Christopher Hart, and Angela and the First Church Chancel Choir. And of course, the wonderful Stephen Scarlato. Please note that all this music was submitted to them in early June, and they learned it completely on their own. And we had 3 rehearsals just this week, 3 night rehearsals, and just what amazing work that they were able to do. I believe Sacred Nine Project is doing important things. For example, in June 2026, the library system at the University of Pittsburgh has asked me to present a nuanced retrospective of the troubled legacy of Stephen Collins Foster. To do that, I'm writing a musical that examines his output not for its own sake, but through the lens of people whom his bad decisions affected most, namely the enslaved. In other years, securing funding for this kind of exploration would have been a cinch, especially since none other than the representative from that library system that holds the storied Foster Hall collection applied for this grant. However, the current climate makes these projects difficult to produce. Please consider giving to Sacred Nine Project. There's a QR code at the doorways and in the program. Our finale is an original anthem of inclusion that I wrote, trying to imagine what the Smiths of Glastonbury would say if they were living in 2025. Again, I was inspired by one of Hannah's sayings. I'm a good mind, she would say. I'm a good mind to go outside and plant a tree. She planted lots of trees, by the way. Now, I'm from Mississippi originally. My mother would say, I'm a good mind to tan your hide, or something like that. Anyway, but I've tried to put a different spin on this saying, I'm a good mind. My take is more literal. It's about us all having a good mind that gives, forgives, helps, and welcomes. Now let's practice your part, because I want you to sing toward the end of it. Stephen, please give me a C. And your part is, it's 5 notes. I am a good mind. Sing that.
I am a good mind.
Great. One more time.
I am a good mind.
Now you'll hear, though, throughout the piece, you'll get reinforced of the rhythm of it, which is, I am a good mind. Sing.
I am a good mind.
Look at that. So when I'll be very clear to indicate to you when I would like for you to just sort of sing that on a loop. Okay? So I appreciate your participation. Please stay afterwards. As Angela told you, there's a little talk back and questions, followed by a reception. Thank you so much for being here.
So we're going to invite
Yeah, Natalie's coming.
Natalie, come on forward,
And Diane.
and Diane.
So hello everyone. I want to say thank you for coming out tonight on behalf of the Connecticut Museum. So I'm hi, introduction. I'm Natalie.
Wait, do you want to come up here?
Hello.
Come on up here. Yeah, that would be a good place so everybody can hear you.
Sure, absolutely. All right. So I'm the public programs manager at the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History, which is where Hannah's diaries reside, I guess. And 2 years ago, I got a heads up from our digitization manager, Tasha Caswell. She said, I'm going to forward you an email with an idea in it for a program. And she said, it's kind of weird, but like good weird, right? And I was like, great, because I get suggestions for public programs all the time. And frankly, people come to our museum and they look at manuscripts and then they write an article. Or they come to our museum and they look at manuscripts and they write a book, or they write something. And here was someone who was had requested copies of Hannah's diary, so that digitized copies, and was suggesting to kind of give it like not a musical treatment. And I thought, this is weird, but this is really, really cool. And I just have to say, even having been kind of helping to put this together, I'm just blown away by this. It was fantastic, absolutely. So just everyone, I mean, can we give them another round of applause? We've got Leonard here, and we've also got Diane Hoover from the Glastonbury Historical Society, because when you came to me with this idea, Leonard, I immediately thought, I have to pull in Glastonbury. I knew the Smiths were important in this town, but I did not realize the depth of the sort of affection for them. And you said, Diane, you guys are new besties, and so we brought you in on that. I guess I can take credit for helping make that introduction. Diane, would you like to just give us a little bit of just, I think in case people are interested in where they might learn more about the Smiths, if you could just share that with us?
Well, first of all, again, a wonderful job, and it's been so much fun working with Leonard here. And he has given me a new view of Hannah, and I think I've introduced him to 5 lovely women, and I think we've both grown a lot with that. But the Smiths in town have always been very important. They were members of this congregation. It was mentioned that they were abolitionists, but they were involved in many other causes, including making sure that everyone had the right to read, and in the basement of this very church, they taught African Americans in town how to read so they could find their own salvation. They were well known throughout, and you must realize that when the suffrage movement was going on, these 2 little old ladies became a great symbol, as Leonard remembered. But just think about the PR with this. Here you have 2 little old elderly women, spinsters, in this backwater town of Glastonbury, Connecticut. And here they are standing up to those mean old men of Glastonbury, and they took away their cows when they wouldn't pay their taxes. And it was a great story. And they truly were known around the country for this. There were other great poems in that book that Julia put together about the cows and so forth. And they certainly have become well known. We have a middle school named after them as well. I go in and I am Julia Smith. The kids sometimes say, how old are you? But aside from that, but they are well known, and I'm so appreciative of having them learn a different way in a different venue that I think was a wonderful job. We have many ideas and so forth at the objects available. We have a display at the Historical Society that has the books, the Bible that she translated. And she did, by the way, take 8 years of her life, translated it 5 times in 3 different languages, simply to find out what God's words were. We also have some original copies of Abby Smith and the Cows, but they're also available online. But we have much information, and as people who know me know, I'm always happy to talk about the ladies. So I welcome you to come visit us there.
also, Robert Laughlin from Glastonbury was also very instrumental in bringing this together. And I think one of the issues when Leo first brought this idea to me was like, it sounds really cool, but I don't know if anyone has visited the Connecticut Museum of Culture and History. You should. We're just in Hartford, it's not far. We have an auditorium, but it's not like a great venue for music, really, okay? It's, you know, it's nothing like this. So to have, this town come together for First Church and Angela Salcedo, who just did an incredible job to offer to make this part of the meeting, the Music at the Meeting House series. This is really, I mean, we couldn't ask for a better spot to do this. So I'm very happy with the way this has turned out. And again, if you told me 2 years ago that this is what this would turn into, I would have been really grateful, actually, because I would have thought this is exactly what I would have hoped for. I would like to open it up to audience questions. All right, does anyone have questions? And I do have a microphone, so I can pop into the audience if you don't mind being on mic. If you have questions for the cast, the composer, for Diane, yeah.
Thank you. That was tremendous. My daughter, who is sitting at my left, is a music teacher, and so she's the inspiration for my attendance. But I just wanted to say that last night we were at the Bushnell listening to Hamilton, and I was so inspired by that show. Music as a window into history. And I'm amazed to tell you that tonight I had a similar experience, and I just loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So totally agree. Wonderful expression of historical aspects of these women. My question for you is, where do you take this? Are you going to take this somewhere else? Is this the only performance of this that we're going to see? Because
I don't know. It was written. What I like to do. I mean, in New Orleans, which is where I'm from, I do a professional choir concert every year with Sacred Nine. Other than that, what I do is I do site-specific, one-off concerts like these. I kind of call them Amera musicals because I know that's really corny, but anyway. I mean, it was intended for this night, and if it's never performed again, this is what it was intended for. I did something similar for UNC Chapel Hill. One of their history professors there, whose name is John Wood Sweet, wrote a Bancroft-winning book called The Sewing Girl's Tale. I don't know if anybody's read it, but it's about the first woman in the United States to sue for sexual assault. Her name was Lana Sawyer. And I wrote something similar, except in this case, I was building out who is Lana Sawyer. Because we only know, unlike the Smiths, we only know about Lana Sawyer about the trial, which she lost. But then she won it another way. That's a long story. Anyway, so I just kind of like found primers from the time, things like the New England primer, and I just tried to build her life out, just to kind of like bring her to life. And I have not performed, that was in 2023. I have not performed it since. I probably won't, but because I try to I get excited about a theme, and I ask myself, where does this thing resonate the most? And so obviously, you know, I got the writings from the Connecticut Museum, so that's where I started. And so, yeah, this is supposed to be kind of a one-off thing. I mean, it might happen again somewhere, but it would be, you know, a long shot, maybe, I don't know. Thank you for asking.
Leonard, I have
Oh, yes.
So I kept journals all through my teens and 20s, and sometimes I look back at them and it's like, it's real cringy. Is there a moment where you look at the journals and you were like, ooh, no. Like, flip.
No. That's something interesting too. I don't know how much you know about journal writing at the time. Her earlier journal, when she was in her late teens, she would muse about things. She would say, I'm feeling guilty about this. I'm feeling this about this. I also transcribed her later journal when she was actually 66, writing as a 66-year-old. And there was literally nothing except I got up at 4, I milked the cow, I planted a tree, I tended the bees. She was also a beekeeper. So there was nothing, she wasn't musing about her life. But I'm glad you asked that, because there were a couple of pages in her earlier journal where you can tell she tried to wipe out. She had just transcribed it, she's like, I don't know about that. But I was able to figure out all that. Yeah. And you can see on the inside of the back of your program, those are two interesting things I found in the program. There's this word that she used 3 times on one page, like argnitzel or it's disfluid. It doesn't even pronounce, So, but you would not believe how long I have tried to figure this word out, okay? And then this diagram that she wrote. What is that? Is it a floor plan? Is it a game that she played with her friends? There was just full of things like that. But she was very careful not to get too personal. Like I said, when she moved to Vermont to attend that school, they must have been really shame-based over there, because she's like, I wish I could read the Bible. I wish I liked to read the Bible more than I do. Oh, I'm such a sinner, this sort of thing, which she never said when she was over here in this, yeah, these heathens over here in Glastonbury, I don't know. But it was very interesting, yes. Other questions? Yeah.
How many sisters were there?
5, I think. 5 sisters, yes. 5 sisters.
What was their date? Did none of them marry?
Julia married right at the end of her life, which was, it wasn't the greatest outcome. But yeah, they waited, none of them married except Julie, and right at the end. And I don't think that, obviously there was no children, because she was quite old when she married. So.
What was the main source of income farming? And how old did they each live to be?
What was their main source of income?
Oh, they were very wealthy. Both Hannah and Zephaniah, thank you, came from wealth themselves, and then Zephaniah was a merchant, a lawyer, a politician. They owned, the house they lived on is down the street, and they owned one of the original lots of land, so they had plenty of income from a farm, so they were very wealthy, and the 5 women were able to carry this on. Abby was very good about keeping track of the financial aspect and so forth as well. So they were independently, they were some of the 10 top taxpayers in Glastonbury, the Smith family. Well, we're going to see. Okay, they died 7 years apart. So Abby's going to live to 94. She will live that, and then her baby sister's going to live till her 80s. Hansi dies in her 80s. Cerinthia is going to die when she's probably in her 70s. So they all lived. That was an unusual thing. They all lived a long life. If you made it past age 10, the fact that all of them born in the late 1700s survived to adulthood, and their 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s said something very strong about their constitutions, I'd say. Very unusual.
What was Hannah's relationship with her husband? It's not mentioned anywhere.
The funny thing for me is, she would know more, because, again, I did 2 journals. One when she was like 16, 17, and then one when she's 66. So this journal over here, it ends right as she's meeting her husband. And this journal over here, he's already passed. So I never hear almost a mention of him at all. So she's asking the relationship between the 2. Oh yeah, you have that nice story.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was one thing I just recently read that, as he mentioned, she liked to write poems. And there was one time where her husband wrote a poem to her and the daughters about breakfast not being ready. And then she turned around and left a little note and poem for him about how the fence needed mending. So I think they had a very good relationship. I think he accepted her independence. I don't think they would have married if that hadn't happened. But he did die in 1836, so the girls were older by then. They were in their 30s and 40s, but that was another reason why they didn't want to pay taxes, because they'd been paying them for 50 years without being represented at all. But it seemed to be, from what I could see, a very peaceful thing between the family. They honored each other.
Yes.
Was there any disappointment about not having a son?
Oh, no,
Were they disappointed that they never had a son?
There was never anything to do that. They were very proud of them, but they wanted them to have all the opportunities that a man would have, which is why they were better educated than, I think, 95–100% of the men in Glastonbury. They were tutored from students from Yale. They also self-taught. They also read, very accomplished. Nancy was going to build a boat that floated on the Connecticut River, sailed, and she also invented an ox sling. Cerinthia was a horticulturalist. Abby Lorilla was an artist, beautiful. Their watercolors are at the museum. Then Julia, of course, the scholar, and then Abby, the suffragist. So they did not seem to disappoint at all.
With two journals, one at 18 and one at 66, I can only imagine that the two different hands are, completely different in their experience and their outlooks. What was it like, sort of analyzing both of them and reconciling with how she went from A to B, filling in that gap?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think there are other journals that are held by somebody else. And I'm going to look into that later. But as you heard from some of those beginning pieces, she had a very capricious and kind of a cutting little attitude. There was a girl named Loandy, Loandy, that she mentioned a lot. She hated her. I mean, she hated her, but she also loved her. You wondered if it was just one of those real love-hate relationships, and she would talk about that a lot. And no, I fell in love with the young Hannah because she would just say what was on her mind. She was independent, she was this, she was that. And then when I got to the other journal, I was looking for some real life experience. This is the meaning of life, because I've lived all these years. But it was just logging her activities. So it was disappointing in that sense, I have to admit. I wanted all the tea, Yes?
In her younger journal, did she talk about her views of the Revolution period?
No, strangely enough, I think one time she mentioned something she might have mentioned it one time. I logged all this for myself too. She mentioned a particular fire that was known at the time. She would mention every now and then a current event, but not much at all. It was kind of insular in that way, except that she read everything. I mean, she read all of the things. And so, she didn't talk a lot about current events, but of course she was very young at that particular time, the earlier journal. Oh, yes, sorry.
I'm doing a terrible job.
So, Leonard, hello. Extraordinary work, and it's an amazing watching over the couple of years this project evolve and grow, and all of the people and the Connecticut Museum getting that call, and as you explained, I'm Robert.
Yes,
Hello.
okay, hi.
I know we didn't get to meet in person. We've only been on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, there's a, and I'm sorry if you explained, but it just, so Connecticut Museum gets the call and they go, oh yes, somebody's working on such and such and we'd like to do, Natalie explained it very well. And we got that call because Connecticut Museum called us at Glastonbury, and we were like, oh, that is interesting. Well, we have to be part, oh, thank you so much for inviting us to be part of it, because it's such a interesting, and we see now the beautiful product that art that has been created here. But my question is, there is a question.
Yeah.
Because you brought all of these people together, all of the artists and all of the historians and everyone together. How did you end up on the doorstep of Connecticut Museum looking for Hannah What was that little seed that,
Yeah.
because you don't live down the street.
No.
So
Yeah.
that was my question.
That's a good question, and I should have mentioned it before because that Lana Sawyer project that I did, she was a sewing girl. So because I was trying to find other known sewing girls at the time of the Revolution, I did a WorldCat search, and I came up with Hannah Hadassah Hickok journals, and she was at the Connecticut Museum, and that's why I got. So Hannah, among all the other things she did, she also did a lot of spinning and sewing, and so so she mentioned. I can't tell you how many times she said spun one run. I'm not even sure what that really means. Somebody does. I see it now. Spun one run. Spun one run. And so I took little phrases she used regarding sewing, and I set that to music and used it as kind of connective tissue in between sets of music at UNC Chapel Hill. So her words were at UNC Chapel Hill in October of 2023. And that's why. And then once I started reading the journal, I'm like, I was obsessed. I couldn't stop, And that's how.
That did come across on the Zoom.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
And then the two of you with Diane then, it was just fantastic.
And Robert, your name is on that paper. I just somehow, when I look up and I look back down, I just skipped over your name. I'm so sorry. Yeah. No, I really wanted to thank you, and I do thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. I'm so glad to see it.
Thank you.
I'll say he didn't wear bow ties on the Zoom, so I think it's the bow tie that's throwing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes?
So, can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for the different pieces? I mean, some of it's obvious, some of the traditional aspects, but such unique presentations and expressions that you had with the music. And can you talk about it?
Yeah. Well, the poetry part is a no-brainer because it just lends itself to lyrical, lyrics. And the other thing is when I wrote these passages
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Leonard. I do want to just sort of shamelessly plug. I have interviewed each of these fine people for the Connecticut, Grading the Nutmeg, which is a Connecticut history podcast sponsored by Connecticut Explored magazine. My interview with Leonard came out about a month ago, I think, about a month ago. And my episode with Diane will come out in early 2025, and we'll talk more. If you want to learn more about the Smith sisters and the Smith family, you can tune in. You don't tune into a podcast. You download it to learn more. But once again, thank you to everyone here tonight. We're going to let everyone go off and have refreshments in the basement, but I think just one more round of applause for the church, Angela, Leonard, everybody, all of the musicians. Thank you so much.